Good evening, Ashlam. Welcome to this episode here of the Watchdog. I'm your host, C.Jay Cox, coming at you here on, well, I think I was about to say Wednesday, but I'm pretty sure it's actually past midnight. So, Thursday, actually, technically. It's supposed to be a Wednesday episode, but Thursday. Nonetheless, it is June the 5th, 2019, and news is just progressively getting more terrible, as is the usual. In the age that we live in, perpetual cynicism and nihilism, life is terrible, yada yada, you know the whole gist. Got this guy here, Carlos Maza, from Vox, who is absolutely horrible at being a reporter. He's terrible. He doesn't know at all what the definition of a fact is. He's a perpetual liar. He's a coward. He likes to, advocate for humiliation and even sometimes occasionally violence, albeit minor violence, against people who he disagrees with. But if anybody says anything to him, then he's very clearly, hateful and homophobic and blah, 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 blah. Well, he's just trying to start another adpocalypse, right? And for those of you who don't know, an adpocalypse is an event that's happened multiple times now on YouTube, where basically a bunch of advertisers freak out because somebody from the SJW crowd said something stupid about somebody who is on this platform and an ad being on that particular video. And all these advertisers pulling out of YouTube, which then, of course, causes a massive decrease in ad revenue. Every single time this has happened, what ends up going on behind the scenes in YouTube is basically they completely overreact and end up hurting, with their new policies and new algorithms and etc., a lot of the content creators who aren't doing anything wrong in order to placate a very vocal minority who, and sometimes, by the way, let's just point out, this vocal minority is trying to go after people who aren't even doing something wrong. For example, they've gone after Dr. Michael Brown for having the audacity to say what the Bible very plainly says about homosexuality. They, of course, have gone after Alex Jones because of conspiracy theories, and Gavin McInnes because of his association with the Proud Boys, which is completely ridiculous. And this guy, Carlos Maza, is trying to get another one of those things started, another one of those adpocalypses started, where a whole bunch of advertisers freak out because he likes, at least in my opinion, I know Tim Pool, who we're going to watch a video here from in a second, doesn't agree with the conspiratorial aspects of this. I don't understand how you couldn't, because he knows that an adpocalypse will lead to not only a shift in the algorithm and in the terms of service and things like that, which will inevitably lead to censorship of conservatives and lead to burying conservative search results and lead to taking conservatives out of the, taking away conservatives' videos' ability to be recommended and etc. and be monetized and etc. Right? Not only will that inevitably happen, but I'm pretty sure he also wishes to get the non-political YouTubers associated in this situation with him and on his side and saying, why punish all of us because a few of these bad apples, quote unquote, and then people start wanting to go after the bad apples even further, i.e. conservatives and religious folk, right? And even a lot of entertainers who they don't agree with, right? Like, for example, Shane Dawson and Logan Paul. We, of course, told you about that article from The Verge, also a Vox company, by the way, saying that Shane Dawson and Logan Paul were perpetuating conspiracy theories and that they should be censored as well. These are, of course, completely apolitical actors. Not actors in the sense that they act in movies, but right, actors in that they're apolitical in their actions, right? And by the way, The Verge, in an article that we actually won't be reading today, but The Verge did actually come out and say after YouTube announced they would not be taking down Steven Crowder's channel, The Verge came out today and said, apparently homophobic slurs aren't against the YouTube terms of service, right? Because, of course, they need to load the title of their articles in order to, put Steven Crowder here as the bad guy, saying he's very clearly a homophobe because he uses words like queer, even though Carlos Maza himself uses the word queer, and, taking jokes out of proportion. And quite frankly, even if it was hateful, I don't actually think it should matter. You should have the ability to say whatever you wish in this country. I know everybody says, well, YouTube is a private company. Yeah, that's completely true. That being said, though, YouTube should, from a moral perspective, right, I think YouTube should protect free speech. Are they obligated to from a legal perspective? No. But from a moral perspective, they certainly should, right? But nonetheless, we're going to get into this. We're going to talk a lot more about it. I want to watch a little bit of this video. We're not going to watch the whole thing because, as you guys might be able to see here, it's about 20 minutes long. We're probably not even going to watch longer than like 3 or 4 minutes. But Tim Pool says some very interesting things in the beginning of this video here. For those of you who don't know, Tim Pool is a, I would say, liberal, independent journalist, much like myself, but much more successful. Much more successful. I mean, this guy, he's doing well, right? And for good reason. He makes good videos. But nonetheless, he's one of the, you know, like Dave Rubin's and Joe Rogan's, right? The people who are definitely liberal, but they're not against freedom of speech and things like that. And he does a video here, Mass Censorship Hits YouTube in Wake of Fox-Steven Crowder Battle. And he makes some very interesting points in the beginning of this video that I think you guys should definitely hear. So we're just going to go ahead and play it.
We're in the wake of the Steven Crowder...
Volume is down.
...victory. The battle is over, but the war is just beginning. We're now seeing the reaction. Numerous digital outlets are talking about whether this is good or bad. They're mostly siding with Carlos Maza, shocked. Now, the BBC does have an article that does present the alternative, that there's a free speech issue here. A free iPod.
Listen up. The soap you shower with, it's you probably have.
I mean, for that to happen. Just one moment.
Numerous digital outlets are talking about whether this is good or bad. They're mostly siding with Carlos Maza, shocked. Now, the BBC does have an article that does present the alternative, that there's a free speech issue here, and that's fine. But following this debacle, we are now seeing sweeping censorship that is going to affect YouTube. YouTube is now announcing that they're going to be getting rid of content that promotes the supremacy of one group over another for the purpose of exclusion or segregation, as well as reducing borderline content and raising up authoritative voices. Quite literally, that means top news channels. So expect YouTube to start promoting CNN, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, New York Times, etc. And
that's exactly right. When they say authoritative voices, what they mean is, you know, groups that are mainstream in the news, right? Groups that are mainstream in science, groups that are mainstream in politics, things like that. They mean basically pushing forward some sort of a status quo, if you will, right? Rather than allowing quote-unquote fringe voices to be given a platform or be given a serious one at that. Now, there's a few things that I think are incredibly concerning. We'll get a little bit more to the video here in a second, but just to look at some of the language we see here, when they say borderline content, that is incredibly vague. Of course, these terms of service, conditions, and things like that, these rules have always been known for being incredibly vague. But the problem with the phrase borderline content is I think you could make an argument that from the perspective of a leftist, anything conservative is borderline content. I think all of us are very familiar at this point with the video where Susan Wojcicki, or however you say her last name, right, was taking questions from people, and one of the people in this crowd gets up and says that, Ben Shapiro is like a gateway drug to the alt-right, and my 12-year-old son has been listening to him, and what are you going to do about this? And Susan Wojcicki says, well, she goes in her answer, we'll do something about this, but I assume you don't want me to ban him, right? To which the lady responds, well, I would, as in I would suggest that, but I can't, right? Implying that it would be a good idea, actually, to ban Ben Shapiro. And, of course, she started this saying Ben Shapiro was a gateway drug, quote-unquote, to the alt-right. And, of course, this isn't the first time people have said this. There's the alt-right sage without the rage comment that was made, I think, by The Independent, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, the Demipendent. They are owned by Saudi Arabia. And it's not just Ben Shapiro who they gone after either, right? You could make a argument, quote unquote. I say an argument because it would be an absolutely pathetic attempt at intellectualism. That's what it would be. But nonetheless, you could make an argument that since he is willing to interview people on the right, Joe Rogan is borderline content, or that Dave Rubin is borderline content, or that Timcast here with Tim Pool is, Tim Pool rather. I don't know why I said Tim Pool in that particular way. It's Tim first name, Pool last name. Anyways, right, that he is borderline content because he's willing to defend conservatives. Right, well, what is your definition? Is Tucker Carlson borderline content? There certainly seems to be a lot of Antifa punks who think so, right? Who want to go up to his house, which, by the way, just so we're perfectly clear, people will get shot if you do that. Like, that's not even a threat. That's just basic facts. If you're going to threaten people's family, things are going to get violent very, very quickly. Very quickly, right? And there's not really much you could even attempt to do to stop it. You could try to, you know, say all the peaceful stuff, let's just hold hands and sing Kumbaya all day. The fact of the matter is, once you start threatening people's family, there's a sort of primal response to that, right? People don't take very kindly to that sort of thing. Tucker Carlson happened to this time take kindly to that. I'm not so convinced many other people are, you know, walking. I'm not so convinced you go up to Alex Jones's house, for example, right? Or to really just any conservative who lives like a conservative. I'm not sure you go up to their house and start threatening their family, saying, we know where you sleep at night, things like that, and not getting shot. I'm not sure that this is something that people really are thinking through, but nonetheless, that's old news. Is that fringe content, right? All those guys seem to think so. I mean, honestly, what is your definition of, quote, borderline content, right? Because borderline seems to imply that it straddles the line between acceptable and not acceptable, which seems to be exactly what a leftist would consider a conservative to be. Seems to be exactly what a leftist would consider somebody like Dr. Michael Brown, a Christian conservative, somebody who's traditionalist, fundamentalist, etc., right? Or Dr. James White or somebody like that. Exactly what they would consider somebody like a Tucker Carlson or a Ben Shapiro, right? It's exactly what they would call those kinds of people. Borderline, right? And the pushing forward of authoritative voices, I mean, since when did the United States of America, the country that said 0.05% or whatever number it was, tax on tea, fight me, right? What is it with this particular country, of all the countries in the world, how is it that here we are becoming acceptable, or accepting, rather, of authoritative voices being a thing in general? I mean, I was under the impression that we were in a nation predicated on the idea that there weren't quote-unquote authoritative voices. There were voices that earned their merit, right? You're an authoritative voice if you've earned your right to be a journalist, not if you work for Certainly Not News, right? Or Fox. Ridiculous. Which, by the way, Fox is very likely to actually be completely buried by YouTube because they're conservative, but Fox is still garbage. I want to be perfectly clear, okay? Fox is garbage. It's partisan hackery and bullcrap for the most part, okay? I mean, like, Tucker Carlson is one of my favorite newscasters, but outside of him, I mean, what? Right? Like, it's trash. It's just like CNN, but the conservative version. Nonetheless, well, I'll get to that later. Let's just continue for a minute.
Vox, of all companies. I have to wonder what the reason for Carlos Maza's campaign was. And a day after we hear that Crowder is going to be allowed to remain, we're hearing that the top news channels will be allowed. In the end, I think what we'll end up seeing is Vox is going to get promoted heavily, and conservative and independent creators will be deranked or just not recommended. And we have some testimony from some creators to discuss this. So the first thing we should do, I don't necessarily want to go over everything pertaining to the Carlos Maza saga, but we will talk a little bit about it. Before we get started, go to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a monthly donation option, a crypto option, a physical address, but of course, the best thing you can do is like and comment on the video or share the link. That's the best thing. And subscribe if you haven't already. But for those that are unfamiliar, Carlos Maza has been on a campaign to rally a bunch of creators to go up against YouTube because YouTube will not ban conservative comedian Steven Crowder. Crowder has repeatedly made videos debunking Strike-Through, Carlos's show on Vox, where he also imitates and mocks him and calls him things based on his identity. Steven Crowder brought up, naturally, I'm more on the side of Crowder should absolutely not be banned or punished in any way, because late-night hosts do this all the time. In fact, Crowder made several good points, in my opinion, about several things said by Stephen Colbert, by Samantha Bee, by Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah even mocking the race and the accents of certain groups of people, in which case, you can't get mad at Crowder for the same behavior. Conveniently, however, following this, YouTube is now taking action, and they're doing a few things. As I mentioned earlier, they say that they're going to be removing violative content, raising up authoritative content, reducing the spread of borderline content, and rewarding trusted creators. They're going to remove,
by the way, when
let's
they
see
say
exactly
that
what they
they're
say.
going to be hiding content that is superior, right, or hateful, let's once again understand here that we are talking about people who do not understand those terms the same way I and you understand those terms. For example, when Dr. Michael Brown made his video, Can You Be Gay and Christian? A lot of people said that it was offensive, that it was hateful towards homosexuals, that it was something that was homophobic, right? And yet, if you actually watch the video, it's obvious that Dr. Michael Brown is going out of his way to be kind to these people, to be loving, to be sweet to them, right? To rebuke the behavior, certainly, but to do so in a loving and gentle manner. And to be honest with you, I don't even think I've ever heard Dr. Michael Brown raise his voice. So, I mean, the idea that he's somehow a radical or hateful is honestly, it causes me to chuckle a little bit, right? And yet, this was something that was absolutely despised. It created a big controversy because it got around. Some people were, it was advertised, and it ended up being advertised on some videos that were pro-LGBT, which, of course, is not anything new, right? You see all the time, like, for example, Mark Dice will have videos when he, the few times he's allowed to have an advertiser on there, he'll have videos where he mentions Islam, so some, like, pro-Islam thing or some pro, Hillary Clinton or whatever ad will actually be on his video because the algorithm notices that whatever content he's talking about actually happens to relate to the ad, even if it relates in the opposite manner. This is something that happens rather commonly, honestly. The only people who ever complain about it are people on the left, but nonetheless. And people got mad at this, and as a result of it, Dr. Michael Brown ended up, and you might remember this, you actually, if you watched these episodes back then, it wasn't that long ago, it was only like 4 or 5 months ago, maybe even less than that, ended up getting his entire channel demonetized, and had the video, I think, taken down before he ended up appealing the decision, right, because of that video, because it was hateful, right, and that is just, it's incorrect. People were saying it was homophobic, people were saying it was going after homosexuals and hating them and degrading them and things like that, and it's not true. Certainly, it was disagreeing with the morality of homosexuality. It was disagreeing with the notion that you could be a consistent Christian and a homosexual. Certainly, those were, that was the motive of the video, right? And that was the conclusion of the video. But how is that a problem? Is that not legal? Is that not something we're allowed to say? It's the facts. I'm sorry. And 3 different things in the First Amendment seem to indicate we have a very, 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 very fundamental right to say that. Freedom of religion, freedom of the press, which you could argue that Dr. Michael Brown is the press because he does have a radio show, and freedom of speech, right? And yet they went after it, right? So is that something they're going to start going after now? I don't know, maybe. When they say content that advocates superiority of a certain group, well, they think Gavin McInnes is a white supremacist. It's false. The Proud Boys are certainly not white supremacists. They have multiple different races in their... hang on. Not only, I got to actually point this out, not only do they have multiple different races in their organization, but their leaders are made up of, well, quote-unquote leaders. I mean, it's a fraternity. It's kind of... The Proud Boys thing is weird. But anyways, their leaders, for lack of a better term, right, come in numerous shades, including Arab Muslim, by the way. Just going to point that out. Because, of course, that's the group that Gavin McInnes criticizes the most, if you were going to narrow it down to groups, excluding the feminazis and all that, right? So is that going to be considered hateful content? What about Zionism? A lot of people think that Zionism, in fact, that's one of the things that the far right and the far left actually seem to agree on, and a lot of people in the middle even, that Zionism is somehow an advocation for Jewish supremacy, which it isn't, by the way. That's retarded if you believe that. Sorry, there's no other better way to put it. Zionism is simply the belief that the Jewish people deserve their own state, that they have the right to self-determination, and that that state specifically should be in the land of Israel. That's it. That is all that Zionism teaches. It is no different than American nationalism or patriotism. It is no different than British nationalism or patriotism. It is no different than any nationalism or patriotism for any other country on the entire planet. The only reason people have a problem with Zionism is because they don't like Jewish people. Anyways, is that going to be something taken down because it advocates for supremacy of a certain group, even though it certainly doesn't? I have a feeling. You know, the vagueness around these terms is ridiculous. And, of course, this is something that has been escalating a lot recently, right? It, of course, started with Alex Jones, although you could make the argument it started before that. There was small little test cases of censorship before Alex Jones was completely, practically unpersoned by all the different social media conglomerates in what can only be described as a very obvious and blatant conspiracy to silence him. But nonetheless, you know, there was banning of the Jewish Defense League and banning of Natural News, and things like that. Well before there was the banning of Alex Jones, they just weren't very big, right? So that was why Alex Jones was the first, you know, million or more. I think it was like 3.5 million at the time of his banning, 3.1 or 3.5, something in between there. He was the first major account to actually go down. And by the way, one of the things that I think nobody's talking about here in this situation is when they say authoritative voices and things like that. That does not just apply politically, okay? I think the flat earthers are incorrect. You all think the flat earthers are incorrect, right? We can have a good laugh at flat earthers. Should they have the right to believe the flat earth, to talk about the flat earth, to make videos questioning whether or not the earth is round? I say yes. Of course they should. Of course they should. It's completely preposterous and totalitarian to say that they shouldn't. But authoritative voices would say otherwise. Right? And so we're going to push forward the authoritative voices. Now, of course, is YouTube under any obligation to endorse your content in any sort of way? Of course not. Once again, there is a difference between a legal argument and a moral argument. I am not saying YouTube legally should be forced to treat all their different content creators equally, right? But morally speaking, if they want to be a platform that is non-biased, that is neutral, that is just offering everybody a chance to speak, then they should let people decide what they want to watch, what they want to listen to, and if that happens to be something that the people on YouTube disagree with, so be it, right? And once again, like I said, it's not a legal argument. I'm not saying they are legally bound to have your videos show up in a recommended feed, okay? But if I am somebody who enjoys watching Flat Earth videos, I expect Flat Earth videos to show up in my recommended feed, okay? And let's not stop with Flat Earth, because Flat Earth is one that we all have a kick and a laugh about, right? A lot of people are young Earth creationists. I myself am a young Earth creationist. That's certainly against authoritative voices. A lot of people think climate change is nonsense, varying from it being a complete and total hoax to I don't think that human beings are capable of stopping it, and everything in between, right? I'm certainly somewhere on that spectrum. I don't exactly know where, to be 100% honest with you. I'd have to study the facts a little bit more, but where does that go, right? What about the Shane Dawson conspiracy theories? I'm sure authoritative voices, like they did after this controversy happened, were not very fond of Shane Dawson going after Chuck E. Cheese's, because Chuck E. Cheese's makes money, right? So does he go down? Talked about a lot of other conspiracy theories too. Does he go down because it's against what the authoritative voices say? I mean, how does that phrase not just screech on your ears like a massive rusty nail on a chalkboard, right? authoritative voices. It's like something out of 1984. And, you know, there's plenty of other things like that. What happens when authoritative voices say that there's more than two genders? Are we going to start kicking people off who say that there is not more than two genders? Authoritative voices currently say that the sanctity of marriage is completely useless. So, are they going to kick people off who say otherwise in that regard as well? Right? Anyways. Oh, wait, no, one last. I also, because I just wanted to point this out, authoritative voices also, at this point in time, say that old Earth creationism is false, so you won't find any solace there. That intelligent design is false, so you won't find any solace there. That the Exodus never happened, so obviously we have to remove those as well, because the historical voices, who are the authority, right, said so, etc., etc. Authoritative voices being pushed forward as the only people you can get legitimate information from is nothing more than totalitarian, dystopian control of information. That's it, right? And that's not a conspiracy theory, that's a fact. Right here, YouTube is saying it. Anyways.
YouTube has always had rules of the road, including a long-standing policy against hate speech. In 2017, we introduced a tougher stance towards videos with supremacist content, including limiting recommendations and features like comments and the ability to share video. I completely disagree with what YouTube is doing, and I will explain that after this paragraph. This step dramatically reduced views to these videos on average 80%. Today we're taking, actually, I don't necessarily disagree with that, with limitations. They say today we're taking another step in our policy by specifically prohibiting videos alleging that a group is superior in order to justify discrimination. That is insanely vague. Does that mean if someone says the people who support pineapple on pizza are inferior, they will ban that group? Of course it doesn't. This is a vague rule on purpose to give YouTube discretion in getting rid of whoever they want. They say segregation...
By the way, another way that could also be used is the fact that we are, and by we you mean America, not any sort of race, not any sort of creed, not any sort of ethnicity, right? But we, as an American culture, are superior to some other cultures. Sorry, those are the cold, hard facts of the matter. When they torture dogs and other sorts of animals so that it'll taste better in China, right? When they sell off their 10 to 12-year-old daughters in India, right? When they are going off taking dumps all over the streets in Africa and gang raping men for having the audacity to be homosexual, something which I actually do disagree with, that being a homosexual, I mean, right? Yeah, I'd say our culture is superior, certainly. And this is going to be used as a way to censor voices that say things like that, too, which, of course, is a conservative idea. American exceptionalism, and etc., right? Nonetheless.
Based on qualities like age, gender, race, caste, religion, orientation, or veteran status. So, obviously, I'm being hyperbolic with the pineapple thing. The point is, it's vague on purpose. This would include, for example, videos that promote or glorify a certain German World War II ideology, which is inherently discriminatory. Finally, we will remove content denying that well-documented...
So, who cares? It's openly discriminatory. All right, fine. It's evil. We should definitely argue against it. We should never elect people who believe that. Certainly. Why should we take it down? Why does that actually matter to you, to take that down? Don't tell me it's because there's a rise in Nazism, because that's factually false. I mean, maybe some people are going out in that direction in the sense of that, like, maybe it's rising statistically speaking. If you go from 1 to 5, I suppose you're rising. But in a nation of 320 million, I don't think 5 is a big deal. Right? Now, is there more than 5? Of course, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here. But you see my point, right? I remember, you know, when we were reading the article from The Verge that was talking about censoring Shane Dawson and Logan Paul, it made the comment that, like, 50,000 or something like that people were following this Flat Earth account. And it's like, really? Really? 50,000? How much does Animal Planet have? Or Neil deGrasse Tyson? Or some other authoritative figure? I'll guarantee you it is more than 50,000. I guarantee you it is more than 50,000. So clearly, the attack on people who are Nazi or KKK, okay, and the attack on people who are flat Earth is nothing more than a way to get other people who are fringe theorists or whatever to also get censored, right? If we all agree the people who deny the Holocaust should be banned, right? Well, authoritative voices also say that the planet is heating up and that we need a Green New Deal to stop it. So if you deny that, are you also going to be banned? Authoritative voices also say that pretty much everything in the Old Testament is false. So if you deny that, are you going to get banned? Etc., right? This goes down the line. Here's a really good example, because it's something that is non-controversial in the sense of that it is a fact, right? I believe some of the other things are facts, but this is a proven fact, right? The Bay of Tolkien incident did not happen. It was false. It was a falsified event so that we would go into Vietnam because we wanted to stop the growing trend of communism in Southeast Asia, especially after losing the Korean War, which was a massive embarrassment for the United States government, right? So we made up the Bay of Tonkin incident so that people would think our boys, our American soldiers, died over there and we need to get revenge, right? That is what happened, and we know that now. It's not a conspiracy theory. But it was for almost 50 years, right? It was a conspiracy theory for almost 50 years. According to this new ruling here by YouTube, right, this new community guidelines that they want to set forward, that correct conspiracy theory would not be able to be talked about, wouldn't be talked about by anyone, or to be demonetized or banned or something like that, if you were to talk about it, until nearly 50 years later when it was proven correct. If it was proven correct, because of course if you can shut down the voices early on, maybe the information never gets out. Or maybe when it does get out, you can paint the people who are talking about whatever event you're talking about being a fabrication or a hoax, or not lining up with the original story, right? Weapons of mass destruction was another example of this. Perfect example of this. And maybe you could just paint all the people who say there is no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq as fringe conspiracy theorists, when everybody who is actually talking about no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq is being shut down by YouTube. Even though we now know for a fact, a non-disputable, indisputable, I don't know, whatever you say, right? Indisputable fact, that there was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, that they were not funding Al-Qaeda. It was not true. It was a lie. John Bolton had a really, really big hand in that, by the way, back in government. Just wanted to point that out here. If you think that Trump is draining the swamp, you're completely and totally high. But anyways, right? Those voices would have been shut down even though it was correct. It was true what they were saying, but they were conspiratorial at the time. Right? Mark Dice and, what's the kid's name? Really famous 80s actor. It'll come to me at some point. Friend of Macaulay Culkin, right? We're always talking about the pedophilia and sexual abuse in Hollywood, and the music industry, and the entertainment industry as a whole. That was a conspiracy theory until, of course, it was proven to be 100% accurate with the whole Me Too thing, which I'm still convinced was done to make Harvey Weinstein the fall guy, basically, so they could continue on with their nonsense. All you need to do is look at the Hulu commercials for their original content to know that they're certainly not going, not turning the sexualization of women and girls down by any stretch of the imagination. But anyways, all conspiracy theories, right? Until they weren't. Well, what about that in-between time? Are you going to be banning those videos, YouTube? Apparently you are. And you say, well, the Holocaust is historically documented, and the flat Earth is, or the round Earth rather, is historically, scientifically documented, and yada, 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 whatever. All right. Sure. But you don't get to be the arbiter of that. Once again, from a moral perspective, not a legal perspective. From a legal perspective, they have the right to do whatever they want with their business. Okay, but from a moral perspective, you should not be the arbiter of that information. You are not our gatekeeper, right? You should be nothing more than a platform where we can find the information that we want to, well, I was going to say read, but in this case, watch, right? That's it. That is the only thing you should be doing here. Because all those other situations, which were very well documented, turned out to be false. And quite frankly, people have a right to believe the Earth is flat. People have a right to believe 6 million Jews didn't die in the Holocaust. People even, and I know this stings and people will never be able to understand this concept, but, hear me now, people have a right to not like other groups of people. They do. Is it morally right? Of course not. Of course not. Being racist is something that is completely abominable. You hate a certain group of people simply because of the color of their skin. It doesn't even make any sense. Should it be illegal? No. No, you have every right to discriminate against people. To dislike certain groups of people. Okay? There should be no one forcing you to like certain groups of people. Now, can you harass them? Can you bully them? Can you try to, attack them or take their job or something like that? No, of course not. But are you allowed to have those feelings and voice them? Yeah, you are. And from morally, not legally, morally, these social media companies do not have the right to be the arbiter of that. Nonetheless, the point is pretty much made in this video. Going to continue to talk about some of the rest of it, though, because it's nonsense, and we do have to continue to talk about it. Here on the Divi-pendant, YouTube to delete thousands of accounts after it bans supremacists, conspiracy theorists, and other, quote, harmful users. Users that promote ideas such as flat earth and fake cures for illnesses will be hidden. Now, I just obviously was talking about the whole flat earth thing. The fake cures for illnesses one is a pretty funny one, though, considering the fact, and this is once again an indisputable fact, right? There were a lot of people in the DEA and in the AMA and in the APA and etc. who were saying, we know definitively, there is absolutely, positively, 100%, no doubt in our mind, none, no, zero, nada. Medical, what do you call that? Basically uses. There's a fancy term for it, but I can't think of it at the moment. For marijuana, right? Now, is marijuana just some catch-all that's going to cure cancer and, take away everybody's glaucoma and even get rid of Alzheimer's? No, that's stupid. If you hear anybody tell you that, they're lying. Turn it off. They're, Normal is one of the worst organizations to get your information from as it pertains to cannabis and THC. But nonetheless, is THC and CBD and other things like that, are they helpful for certain diseases? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just a fact. I mean, go and look up some of the videos and some of the medical papers pertaining to people with Parkinson's and the epilepsy one. It's called something. Epilepsy. Epileptic one. That's funny. It just said the epilepsy one. It's called epilepsy. Duh. Anyways, just go look at the videos and the papers about, what the CBD liquids or whatever they are. They might be pills, but I'm pretty sure they're liquids. What they actually do for these people, it's incredible, right? Within a matter of seconds, they're not shaking. They're able to talk clearly. They're not having their seizures anymore, things like that. Is it a cure? Of course not. Should you listen to all the propagandistic bullcrap from the pro-marijuana lobbyists? No. But should you listen to the propagandistic bullcrap from the FDA and from the DEA and from the AMA and all those other kind of groups? Of course not. That was also incorrect. They're both wrong. And these fake cures for illnesses, they weren't cures, right? That's certainly stretching the actual effects of the marijuana, but they work. As I'm a hell of a lot better than a lot of the stuff that you can go buy at a store or get from a pharmaceutical company do, right? And of course, that's not the only example, but it's a very popular example in the modern day because, quite frankly, most people under the age of 35 smoke weed, or at least have smoked weed. I would say probably more have smoked weed, but anyways. YouTube will delete thousands of accounts. Guess I'm from Alabama all of the sudden, and I will be reading. Sorry. Oh, shoot. I guess I don't do much reading if I'm from Alabama. Anyways, YouTube will delete thousands of accounts after banning supremacists, conspiracy theorists, and other harmful accounts, it has claimed. The decision was made after an in-depth review of its rules on hateful content, YouTube said. Well, it has always banned hate content in general. The site has allowed some specific kinds of harmful videos, such as those promoting Nazi ideology or claiming 9/11 did not happen, to continue being hosted on the site. Okay. Literally nobody claims that 9/11 did not happen. I just want to throw that out there right off of the gate. Okay. That's a lie. I'm sorry, that's not true. None of the 9/11 truthers say 9/11 didn't happen. What they say is the story that we have been given was false. If you don't believe that or agree with that, fine. Hang on, there is. Okay, it's a good thing that it's muted. But anyways, but they're not saying that it didn't happen. There's documented video evidence that it happened. I mean, everybody knows it happened. There's 3,000 people who are missing, you moron, right? It is not the claim of the people who you are trying to lump into this category of absolutely crazy, insane conspiracy theorists, right? But whatever. Just go ahead and spew more lies here from the demi-pendant and half-truths. Those videos, as well as other kinds of supremacist content, will now be officially banned. Quote, "Today, we're taking another step in our hate speech policy by specifically prohibiting videos alleging that a group is superior in order to justify discrimination, segregation, or exclusion based on qualities like age, gender, race, caste, religion, sexual orientation, or veteran status," end quote, it wrote in a blog post. "This is expected to lead to the removal of thousands of accounts as it goes into place, though that could take some time. Quote, "We will begin enforcing this updated policy today. However, it will take time for our system to fully ramp up, and we'll be gradually expanding coverage over the next several months," end quote, its announcements read. Is that it? No, it is not. It did not give any specific examples of accounts that would be removed. It noted that some of those accounts are useful to researchers, and said it would try to work on ways of making sure they stay available. It also said the change would not affect videos that are discussing, quote, "pending legislation aimed to condemn or expose hate or provide analysis of current events." It will also alter its algorithm in an attempt to stop certain kinds of misleading and harmful videos, such as those promoting fake miracle cures, or the Flat Earth hoax, will stop being recommended in YouTube's up next sidebar. It will also encourage more authoritative videos to try and discourage people from being tricked by those stories. Authoritative, there you go again, right? The authoritative voices, the people you need to listen to. And of course, they use something we all agree that the Flat Earth is wrong, right? But do we all agree that females and males are the only two kinds of human gender that is legitimate, right? Well, I mean, the authoritative voices don't. But whatever, right? This is what the liberals want. This is the utopia they wish to establish, and we're just along for the ride, I guess. Kind of ridiculous, but whatever. It has already trialed the system to do this in the U.S. and said it has found success. It will bring it to more countries by the end of the year, it said, as well as tuning the algorithm, so that it is more efficient and can spot more content, it said. It also said that it would work harder to stop YouTube users promoting harmful content from receiving ad money. Channels that repeatedly brush up against its hate speech policies will be suspended from the company's partner program. Quote, "The openness of YouTube's platforms has helped creativity and access to information thrive," end quote, its blog post concluded. Quote, "It's our responsibility to protect that and prevent our platform from being used to incite hatred, harassment, discrimination, and violence. We are committed to taking the steps needed to live up to this responsibility today, tomorrow, and in the years to come," end quote. Which is, of course, an outright lie when you consider the fact that people who are not saying anything that is violent or harassing or anything like that whatsoever, like people like Steven Crowder and Mark Dice, are being demonetized, whilst other people who say things like Carlos Maza, for example, has advocated the milkshaking, quote-unquote, of conservatives, and numerous other people, of course, have advocated outright violence. I mean, Peter Fonda, who's Twitter, not YouTube, but said that we should lock Barron Trump, in a cage with pedophiles, right? But they're not going to take them down because they're on the correct side. It's the world we live in, folks. The change comes on the same day as the company said it would not remove videos in which one of its stars attacked another user over his sexuality using a series of anti-gay slurs. Strangely, the company now explicitly bans videos that encourage discrimination or segregation based on sexuality, but made no reference to that high-profile case in its blog post, and did not say that it would change its position. Notice the demi-pendant, though they refused to name him, Steven Crowder, is actually saying that they should be using this. I mean, they're not saying it outright, right? But they are certainly hinting towards YouTube needs to ban Steven Crowder. Because these people will never be satisfied. Okay? It will not happen. And let me just be the first to say, by the way, all you conservatives out there, I don't know, what are we going to do? We need to have regulations. No, you idiot. Make a new YouTube. It is literally that simple. You think that you're the only people being affected by this? Shane Dawson, Logan Paul, talk about being banned. Matt Pat, because of the stupid MCM rules from YouTube, along with some, I don't know how many creators were involved in this, but a few other creators, right? Matt Pat from the Game Theorist and Film Theorist, right? Lost $1.7 million, right? People being shut down for having the audacity, like Alternate History Hub, right? Having the audacity to put a Nazi slogan, or not a slogan, but a symbol, right? Like the swastika, in a video that is about Nazism, right? So it's not like you're just going to be getting a whole bunch of supremacists or whatever, right, on your new platform if you make a new YouTube. You're going to get the entertainers. You're going to get the people who are shooting guns. You're going to get the political actors who are not insane. You're going to get the religious arguers, right? You're going to get people who like conspiracy theories. You're going to get people who have comedy that is offensive in some way, shape, or form, or basically anybody who doesn't want to go through the, quote, authoritative voices. Because, by the way, if you think this just applies to news, you are smoking some seriously good crack, because it's not like the entertainment industry has in the past been very fond of the underground rappers, for example, or independent movie makers, for example, right? So this is clearly going to be pushed forward to even the entertainment industry. It's just a matter of time, right? Excuse me. But nonetheless, YouTube is repeatedly criticized, has been repeatedly criticized, rather, for its relatively lax approach towards various kinds of harmful content, including those on the far right. Notice they only go after the far right. You want to know why? Because the Demipendent wants conservatives to be censored. Notice they also lie. Say that criticism became even more prominent in the wake of the Christchurch shooting, when other video sites failed to quickly remove videos of the mass murder. Which is not true. They were all removed within 24 hours. But notice that they used this as the example. You know what the man who shot up Christchurch was? He was an eco-fascist. Eco as in a environmentalist. And fascist, which is a left-right syndical belief. Okay? Has elements of the right and the left. It is nationalism. It is also socialism. What did they call Nazism? National Socialism. Mind-blowing concept. As such, the site has been repeatedly accused of not only permitting, but also encouraging extremism. Excuse me. By playing host to often violent and niche accounts. And if you believe that, you're a stupid person. There's no use even talking to you. I still will, but just know that I look down on you. You're an idiot. And I should look down on you. You're the kind of person who drags culture to the depths, right? But right-wing channels, there it is again, right-wing, also make up a significant part of YouTube channels and their viewers. Earlier this year, Bloomberg reported that far-right videos were one of the site's most popular categories. Notice they interchange right-wing with far-right, because you can't possibly be right of center and not some far-right extremist, according to these morons. The decision also comes amid increasing scrutiny from conservative politicians about whether YouTube is a bias against right-wing creators. It certainly does. As with Twitter and Facebook, the company has been criticized for undermining free speech and being unfair towards its conservative users, despite the fact that there is no evidence of those accounts being discriminated against. Are you joking with me right now? You literally were presenting the evidence in your article, you demipendent scum. Scum bags, liars, disgusting. Okay? I mean, if there's some sort of law that can get these people sued, somebody find it and sue the hell out of them. Because this is absolutely horrible. It's disgusting. Right wing, right wing, right wing, far right, far right, far right. There's no evidence that anybody's going after the right wing. I want to know, are the people who actually read the Demipendent this stupid? Because quite frankly, if you are, when you say we need to reach middle ground, I think I'm good. I mean, honestly, I think I'm good. When you say, well, I don't want us to, be on our own, kind of like my echo chamber if it doesn't include you guys. Just being honest. Like, if this is a convincing argumentation to you, I mean, I don't know what to say. I just simply don't know what to say. But nonetheless, we continue some more. Got more stuff to talk about. YouTube ends the monetization of conservative commentator Steven Crowder's channel after left-wing outrage. From Greg Reed, Fox News. An abrupt reversal amid an ongoing online firestorm. YouTube announced Wednesday that it would block conservative commentator Steven Crowder from making any money on videos he uploaded to the site, following a torrent of outrage from left-wing groups from insulting remarks he made about a gay political personality working at Vox. YouTube, a Google subsidiary, claimed Crowder had engaged in, quote, continued egregious actions that had harmed the broader community, end quote, which is a lie, but acknowledged that Crowder's videos, quote, did not violate our community guidelines, end quote, but they demonetized him anyways because they are completely spineless scum. The company stopped short of banning Crowder and deleting his videos entirely, as many progressive groups and journalists demanded, such as the Independent that we just saw. Crowder's demonetization, in turn, prompted conservatives to renew charges of large-scale censorship and hypocrisy against the big tech giant, which is exactly correct. Several right-leaning content creators, as well as nonpartisan journalists documenting hate speech, charged that that YouTube has engaged in a broad purge Wednesday against their channels, which were not directly related to Crowder's dispute. Stretch this out a little bit. Does seem to be... I don't think I can. Never mind. Quote, Vox is still going to be pissed. They're not going to be happy with this, end quote. Crowder said in a video posted on his Twitter account after learning about YouTube's action, calling the situation a brewing adpocalypse. Crowder has more than 3.7 million subscribers on YouTube. If you're watching this video, I mean, pure principle, subscribe to those videos, and I mean, if you're willing to spend the money, join Mug Club. Hashtag not sponsored. Hashtags are so dumb. Quote, it's not a win, he continued, because their goal is to completely get rid of people. We're at a point in time right now where people can still have a voice, but a lot of people are going to lose their ability to lose revenue. I think what he means is people are going to lose their ability to have a revenue. But nonetheless. In a live stream Wednesday afternoon, Crowder highlighted a series of unpunished hateful comments made by liberal commentators, including Stephen Colbert's reference to President Trump as Putin's wiener holster. I'm trying to keep this a little bit more PC. I guess, I mean, I don't know. I do insult a lot of people, so maybe I could just not try to keep it, you know, polite. I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, it's Samantha Bee's mockery of Ivanka Trump as a feckless cunt. The episode began May 30th with a viral Twitter post by left-wing Vox personality Carlos Maza, who is a spineless scumbag, which contained video montage of derogatory comments Crowder had made about Maza in the past 2 years. In the various clips, Crowder variously refers to Maza as an angry little queer, a gay Mexican, and Mr. Lispy queer from Vox. Which is hilarious, by the way, when he's a Mr. Lispy queer from Vox. I mean, that's just funny. Sorry. Maza, an openly gay partisan activist, has previously used aggressive language on social media, like Milkshake the Mall, wrote on May 21st of this year, referring to right-wing activists, and humiliate them at every turn, make them dread public organizing. So, in other words, ban anybody who dares insult me because I'm a queer and therefore I'm a protected individual, right? But also go out of your way to embarrass all of the different conservatives. Like I said, spineless, disgusting dirtbag. Filthy pig. I don't know how else I can put it to you. I do not like this man. He is scum. He is a germ. On Tuesday, YouTube initially... Can't get this tickle out of my throat. YouTube initially responded to Maza's complaint with a statement explaining it would take no action, which is what it should have done. Quote, our team spent the last few days conducting an in-depth review of the videos flagged to us, and while we found language that was clearly hurtful, oh my goodness, so terrible. The videos as posted don't violate our policies, end quote, YouTube wrote at the time. Quote, as an open platform, it is crucial. That's funny. It's crucial for us to allow everyone, from creators to journalists on late-night TV hosts, to express their opinions within. Sorry, I thought that said "win" for a minute. Within the scope of our policies, opinions can be deeply offensive, but if they don't violate our policies, they remain on our site. End quote. The company added, quote, even if the video remains on our site, it doesn't mean we endorse support that viewpoint. There are other aspects of the channel we're still evaluating. We'll be in touch with any further updates, end quote. In a response to an inquiry from the tech blog Gizmodo later Tuesday, YouTube elaborated on its reasoning. Gizmodo published the comments, even though YouTube's media relations department had indicated they were provided on background, meaning not for direct quotation. There's more to this article, but to be honest with you, we got like 5 minutes left, and there's other stuff I want to talk about. But here we are, right? More media censorship. This is just the way it is. It's the way it's going to continue to go. And here you have court affirms media was wrong. Those videos of Planned Parenthood dealing in baby parts were not deceptively edited. This is a few months old, January 18th, 2019. But here's another example of those authoritative voices being incorrect. They were wrong, and you were a conspiracy theorist if you said the things here that disagreed with them. And yet, it was incorrect. It was false, right? Etc. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a ruling that allows Texas to strip Planned Parenthood of its medical funding. Come on, are you kidding me? The decision, which is tied to the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, called to have Planned Parenthood removed as a qualified Medicaid provider following the release of several damning undercover videos, should come as a major blow to not just the abortion provider, but also the press. The ruling shatters the claim that the tapes which featured Planned Parenthood associates discussing the processes by which organs from the remains of aborted children can be harvested and donated for a fee were selectively edited. It also affirms that Planned Parenthood associates did indeed circumvent legal and ethical guidelines in pursuit of harvesting human organs, all of this in direct contradiction to what the so-called Women's Health Organization and its eager defenders in the press claimed after the tapes were released in 2015. Those of you may recall that Planned Parenthood decided that they were going to sell baby parts, right? And they were busted. And it was a very controversial thing until it wasn't, because nothing is controversial for long in this day and age. And, yeah, everybody said it was a lie, and the people who ended up actually, taping these videos had legal action taken against them. And, conservatives were just attacked from here to Timbuktu for being overly zealous to control women's bodies, quote unquote. Well, as it turns out, that's false. What do you know about that? The Fifth Circuit's decision, warning graphic content, includes these two quotes affirming earlier findings by the Texas Office of Inspector General and its chief medical officer. The record reflects that OIG had submitted a report from a forensic firm concluding that the video was authentic and not deceptively edited, and the plaintiffs, Planned Parenthood, did not identify any particular omission or addition in the video footage. There was no question that the OIG here made factual findings after viewing the videos, after viewing the videos and related evidence. On the basis of the administrative record, the OIG determined the video discussion centered on clinical processes and tissue packaging rather than the abortion procedure itself. The video featured repeated discussion about the position of the fetus in the uterus, the risk of the patient, and the patient's pain tolerance. The OIG further concluded, based on the videos, that the provider plaintiffs, at a minimum, violated federal standards, regarding fetal tissue research and standards of medical ethics by allowing doctors to alter abortion procedures to retrieve tissue for research purposes, or allowing the researchers themselves to perform the procedures. If you still believe everything you read in the news, the court's ruling this week should come as a great shock. We'll post the link in the description, but we do have to actually get on to some other stuff. Don't have much time, so want to very briefly go through some things here. This is from 2016. Sorry, my nose itches really bad. January 11, 2016. We'll talk more about this on Apologetics. Now the end begins. The Pope's first ever video message on his monthly prayer intentions was released Tuesday being after the January 11, 2016, highlighting the importance of interreligious dialogue and the beliefs different faith traditions hold in common, such as the figure of God and love. Why is this important? Well, because Pope Francis has, of course, been very, 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 very strong in the ecumenical camp. He has been advocating for unity amongst all different Christians. Pope Francis was the One World Religion Prayer video. Sorry. It's possible for the four major faiths can never be united. It is possible that the four major faiths can never be united on any sort of common ground, unless the common ground is the fulfillment of the end times prophecy of the apostate one world religion. This is, of course, the opinions of this website. It is my own opinions as well. But like I said, we'll talk more about that on apologetics in a future episode there. The only reason I want to point this out is just to remind you guys that when this article, Pope Francis approves change to the Lord's Prayer, comes up, that is the reason why. The Pope Francis wants interreligious ecumenical dialogue and wants to push himself as the liberal and, free love kind of Pope who's going to accept everybody, right? Pope Francis finally approved the changes he has long wanted to implement to the Lord's Prayer by replacing "Lead us not into temptation" to "Do not let us fall into temptation," reports You Catholic. Quote, on May 22nd, during the General Assembly of the Episcopal Conference of Italy, President Cardinal, whatever that is, Bassetti, announced the approval of a third edition of Missale Romano, reported the outlet. The revised The revised translation will include changes to the Lord's Prayer and Gloria. The Lord's Prayer will change from "and lead us not into temptation" to "do not let us fall into temptation." The changes will be implemented to the Italian Missal only and will have no effects on the English-speaking world. Pope Francis, the Grand Blasphemous himself, first spoke of his desire to update, like it needs an update, the "lead us not into temptation" part of the Lord's Prayer, arguing that it portrays God in a false light. A father does not lead into temptation. A father helps you get up immediately, the Pope said at that time. It is not a good translation because it speaks of a God who induces temptation, he added. Notice, it is not a good translation because that's not what the text originally says. It is not a good translation because that's not the way God, in my opinion, should be working. Know this. If you are a Christian, there is no possible way you can follow the Pope after this. He has outright changed what the Scriptures say, not because of evidence of what the Scriptures said in the past or any sort of changes, but only because of his own opinions. Number two, if you are not a Christian, know that the Pope is changing what is supposed to be considered his own dogmatic creeds, the faith he has sworn to protect. He is changing it so that you find his God to be more acceptable. And if that doesn't tell you there's some kind of conspiracy in the Vatican, nothing ever will. Really, really wish we could go on more about that. But we're already past an hour. I'm tired of making these videos so much longer than an hour. Mystery surrounds the death of Noah Pothoven, who tried to be euthanized. New reports suggest 17-year-old Dutch girl was reportedly euthanized after being raped by a child, or as a child, rather. Raped by a child. I'm sorry, that is kind of hilarious. Raped as a child. Actually died after refusing food and water. A very sad story. Should stop laughing. Sorry. Did not mean to say that. Anyways. He reports just 17-year-old Dutch girl who was reportedly euthanized. Sorry. Who was reportedly euthanized after being raped as a child, actually died after refusing food and water. Noah Pothoven was reported to have been legally euthanized, but it turns out her request had been denied. As it should be, by the way, because when people first started saying, oh, she was going to be legally euthanized, like, really? So we're going to euthanize rape victims, but not rapists. Genius. I just love the liberal ethic. I can't live with the guilt of being raped as a child, so it's legal to euthanize me. Which should not be legal to euthanize anyone, by the way. If you want to commit suicide on your own accord, that's on you. But medical officials and government officials should not be killing people. Okay? That's just the end of that discussion, in my opinion. But anyways, we're going to let you die, even though you're only 17, because you got raped. But we won't actually execute the rapist. Slow clap for you, leftists. You done made the world a better place, killing a 17-year-old girl. Well, allegedly, actually. Turns out, maybe that's not the case. Politico reports that the teen died at, Politico reports that the teen died at the weekend several days after refusing all fluids and foods. Her parents and doctors agreed that they would not force feed her. Which, I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, force feeding probably causes more harm than good, truthfully. I mean, if she's not going to, I don't know, that's a rough situation. Noah from what does it say? Arnhem said in social media post a day before her death last Sunday that she breathes but no longer lives, which of course is horrifying. She wrote an autobiography called "Winning or Learning After Sexual Assaults and Rapes as a Small Girl," led to her to develop post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anorexia. She was attacked 3 times as a youngster. The first 2 incidents were molestations when she attended children's parties aged 11 and 12 before she was raped by 2 men when she was 14 in the Elderveld neighborhood in the city, which is, of course, completely disgusting. These men need to be executed. Excuse me. I'm sorry. The audacity of calling this filth men. This is disgusting, is what this is, and I'm horribly, horribly sorry for this girl that she felt the way that she did. Because truthfully, it's not okay at all for anybody to feel that way. And I hope if anybody watching this happens to be a victim of something and needs somebody who they want to talk to in some way. I mean, I'm obviously, I don't know what I would personally do. I guess you could message me. Certainly not saying you couldn't. But reach out to someone. I mean, at least I'm somebody, right? Like, don't take your own life or isolate yourself, because that is very unhealthy. Taking your life, of course, this girl was 17, right? If she did actually euthanize herself, she could have been, living another 63 years, possibly getting better, and possibly growing worse. I understand that. I guess, to a certain extent, when it comes to suicide, it is kind of it's your own choice, right? There's nothing that, I'm not going to sit here and condemn you morally for that. It's life can suck, for sure, and especially when you've gone through some things like that. But if you have, just know that there are definitely people who care for you. There are people who will listen to you, who will try to help you get through this. Don't feel ashamed. You didn't do anything, right? Don't feel disgusted with yourself because it's not your fault. And from a political perspective, these people, the people who are committing these crimes, they do need to be punished to the harshest extent of the law. And of course, they need to be found guilty beyond any shadow of a doubt. 12 jurors, unanimous decision. There's no way these people are innocent, right? We've made sure of that. Innocent until proven guilty. Fair trial, get a lawyer, all that kind of stuff. But once they are, they need to be punished to the harshest extent of the law, because this is not acceptable. Anyways, for years, she never revealed the horrific abuse because it left her feeling ashamed, the 17-year-old said. Quote, I deliberated for quite a while whether or not I should share this, but decided to do it anyway, she wrote. Maybe this comes as a surprise to some, given my post about hospitalization, but my plan has been there for a long time and is not impulsive. I will get straight to the point. Within a maximum of 10 days, I will die. After years of battling and fighting, I am drained. I have quit eating and drinking for a while now, and after many discussions and evaluations, it was decided to let me go because my suffering is unbearable. End quote. New quote, out of fear and shame, I relive the fear and pain every day, always scarred, always on my guard, and to this day my body still feels dirty. My house has been broken into, my body, and can never be undone. Noah, end quote. Noah spent her final hours saying goodbye to her heartbroken friends and family. Last year, she revealed she had been admitted to a hospital in a critical condition after her anorexia left her organs on the brink of failure. Doctors placed her into a medically induced coma to feed her through tubes. Dutch minister Lisa Westerveld, who first made contact with Noah in December after her newspaper interview, visited the 17-year-old before her death. She said, quote, it was nice to see her again. It was also very unreal. Noah was incredibly strong and very open. I will never forget her. We will continue her struggle, end quote. And then it says, if you are experiencing mental health issues or suicidal feelings, contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or Beyond Blue 1300 224 636. I'm fairly certain that these are not for our own country, but nonetheless, If you're from the country where this applies, if it is an emergency, please call 000. There's the information for you. Nothing good about this story. There just isn't. Right? It's just another example of human evil. Of, you know, how terrible crippling depression can be for people, and, you know, things like post-traumatic stress. And it sucks. It sucks. You know, I don't think that you should be legally euthanized. I personally think it is a violation of the Hippocratic Oath, and I don't think that the government should ever take the life of anyone who hasn't expressly violated not only the law, but in a way that is heinous. I've shared before, the only crimes I think deserve the death penalty are torture, rape, pedophilia, and unprovoked murder. I don't want to, you know, I know a lot of people get angry with the victim because of, you know, what they end up putting the family through, and whilst I sympathize with that, I don't think that's fair, honestly. I think it is probably, I mean, it's probably pretty miserable living with that kind of psychological trauma. And for those who have done it, I mean, 1,000 pats on the back to you, and I mean that sincerely. I'm very happy for you. I don't want to blame somebody who felt like they couldn't, though. And I would just hope that that would be something that is understood, you know, that other people would feel the same way. You should not be angry with this woman. You should be very heartbroken by this woman's story. You should feel that this is not right, that there is something that needs to be done about this sort of thing. And of course, we can't get a rapeless society, just like we can't get a murderless society, and we can't get a mentally, you know, a depressionless society, just like we can't get an angerless society. It just doesn't work that way. But there's no reason we shouldn't try, right? I mean, honestly, right? The goal is 0. Will the goal ever be reached? Probably not. I mean, definitely not. Unfortunately, I happen to firmly believe that, at least not until we're in the, you know, behind the pearly gates. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. And you know, there's serious consequences to not trying. This is a serious consequence. This right here is the face of somebody who is way too young to be dead, but felt like they could not continue on living because of things that were done to them. Evil, disgusting, horrid things that were done to them. Felt like they couldn't live with it because they're feeling like they did something else, you know, or something wrong themselves, right? It's terrible. The whole thing is terrible. We need to punish these kinds of people, not Noah, but her attackers, and we need to let people like Noah know that there is, or Nova, was it Nova or Noah? Excuse me, just 1 minute. Noah, right? We need to let people like Noah know that there are people out there who will help them, and maybe they can't. I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to be the person to condemn Noah Pothoven for her action. I mean, I can't do it. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I feel for her too, and I don't know. It's a heartbreaking story. It sucks. The whole thing sucks. But we got one last thing to talk about. Just kind of want if I told you so a little bit here. Will make me a little bit happier after that ridiculously depressing story. So let's watch this video real quick.
Yes, no, the police have detained somebody, and charges are going to be pressed. Look, we simply cannot have a tiny but radicalised section of our community stopping free speech and political campaigning. I mean, we've literally reached a point now where any sense of normal political campaign can't happen because people are prepared to use violence rather than arguments.
Some people claiming the milkshake isn't violence.
Really?
One Guardian journalist
Okay. All right. In terms of tonight's event, you're here in Bolton. You've been all over.
Yeah.
There's a bit of excitement in there. What is it about this?
Well, I tell you what it is.
So the only reason I wanted to show you that video is just to say that he is exactly correct.
Are your teeth?
A lot of violence in politics right now. But this article here is quite damning, in my opinion, to the Brexit Party, to Nigel Farage, to the mainstream Brexiteers. Nigel Farage's success is good news for one reason. He has killed off those who are even loonier than him. What did I say? Obviously, it's not all about me. It's about, other people as well. But what have you heard from people, not Sargon of Akkad, but, from many people? The Nigel Farage killed UKIP. He killed it. He killed any possibility of a legitimate conservative party in the United Kingdom for a one-issue party that, is going to effectively become defunct in like 6 months, right? Guess what? The left is saying that exact same thing in Britain. You may think Nigel Farage a nasty piece of work, and you'd be right. This is an opinion piece, so he's allowed to say that. But once again, here we are on the Independent, right? Of course. Who else would it be? But he has finished off his old mates in UKIP, who are even more dangerous than his new mob, which is now a one-issue pressure group. Exactly. Exactly. Sean O'Grady gets it. When you needed people to defend the British nation, the English culture, freedom of speech, the rule of law, defend against the Islamization of the culture, and against the social justice warriors, you decided to break your own party, which was rising up. 12% in the polls before Brexit came about. Before Brexit Party came about, I mean. They're all saying it too, it's not just me. Comes to something when one of the few encouraging developments in British politics is that chap styling himself as Sargon of Akkad will not be representing the people of southwest England in the European Parliament. You can imagine the bemused Belgian TV reporters trying to make sense of that guy like something out of a Monty Python, but with added hate. Real name Carl Benjamin. Sargs is the UKIP candidate who thinks cracking gags about rape and threatening violence on Jess Phillips MP is funny. Never threatened any violence, and cracking gags about rape is funny. If you make it funny. It's just a fact. A free speech merchant, according to his leader Gerard Batten, electing Benjamin, though, was to be just too embarrassing for the voters. Instead, they plumped for the Brexit parties. And Windencombe, who is also an embarrassment, and whose views on LGBT plus issues are, shall we say, disappointing, but at least she doesn't threaten violence. Can you imagine? Once again, that is a lie. The Independent is lying, being libelous at the moment. They should be sued for it. Okay? I'd like you to show me where Sargon of Akkad has called for violence. Much the same can be said about the rest of the Brexit Party campaign, challenging and defeating people even more unhinged than they are. So thanks, I suppose. You may think Nigel Farage is a nasty piece of work, and you'd be right, but he has finished off his old mates in UKIP, who are even more dangerous than his new mob, which is now one-issue pressure group. Thus, we have Farage to thank, as well as plucky Lib Dem SNP, Plaid, Cymru, and Green campaigns, for making sure that Mark Meechan, better known as Count Dacula, and Nazi Pug Job, is not booking his ticket to Brussels on the Eurostar as a UKIP MEP for Scotland. He will not be in the Euro Parliament bar with his party trick. Able to show fellow parliamentarians from Germany and Poland how he taught his girlfriend's pet bug to give a Nazi salute on mention of the words "gas the Jews." I don't think poor old guy Verhofstadt would have been able to take that final trashing of the European dream. Most pleasingly of all, the absurd Stephen Yaxley Lennon. This is like I wrote this article in order to prove my own video from last week to be correct. This is practically what this is. Did I not say that the person they were trying to go after mostly is Tommy Robinson because he's actually a true conservative? I I literally couldn't have made this up, you know what I mean? Too toxic even for UKIP, even as an official candidate. Lost his deposit in the Northwest England. They may be a bit Eurosceptic, rather, in Lancashire, but they are not neo-Nazis. That is a lie. The Demipendent is lying. They are lying to you. They are spreading libelous false statements to discount political enemies. I mean, look, here's the point. Here's the point. Stephen Yaxley Lennon, known as Tommy Robinson, is the last true conservative under the age of 40 in Britain right now. Or who is primarily focused in Britain right now. Milo Yiannopoulos and Paul Joseph Watson and Sargon of Akkad and Mark Meechan are conservative-ish, and also not focused directly in Britain. Tommy Robinson is the only one. I used to think Nigel Farage, but apparently that was a lie. And when they go after him, they are taking out the possibility for conservative leadership in the future. When they go after Gerard Batten and UKIP, they're taking out the possibility for conservative leadership in the future. When they are going after Mark Meechan and Milo Yiannopoulos and Paul Joseph Watson and who's the other guy? Carl Benjamin, right? They are going after freedom of speech and making sure that there won't be representatives for it in the future in Britain. And Nigel Farage has helped them do that. And now the Demipendent, one of the most disgusting so-called news organizations on the planet, is given a love letter over to Nigel Farage from one Sean O'Grady saying, thank you for defeating the, quote, undesirables. Well, yes, thank you, Nigel Farage, for destroying the possibility of Britain ever actually returning to being a great nation, to being a pinnacle of the West, of freedom, of Christianity, of the English-speaking culture. Thank you. And with that, and this horribly depressing news cycle that seems to get worse every day, I say if you like this video, you can go ahead and like and share this video. Please do comment any questions, comments, or concerns below. Shalom, and thank you very much for watching. We always appreciate your view. You can go here to TheCynicogue, right? Just click the little thing down there. And it'll say, hey, what's up, yo? You want to click this bell so you can get notifications? Then you can totally click the bell, and you may possibly get notifications if YouTube is working. So if you want to do that, please do. That would definitely be appreciated. We have all of the articles that we're going to be using down in the comment section below, so definitely check that out. If you want to like us on other social media websites, you can go to ACP Official on Gab, TheCynicogue on Minds, Terrestrial Earthbird on Twitter, Cynic Thought on Instagram, or the American Cynic Party on Facebook. And thank you guys very much for watching this video. Well, life is terrible.